Welcome to Stormin O .net, a fun and innovative way of watching TV online. I hope you've been enjoying the segments that we've had thus far. And I have a friend. I'll call him a friend. You have to call him Honorable Congressman John Carney. But I remember looking up to this guy when he was an incredible athlete at St. Mark's High School, and I probably was carrying his cleats. But he was an incredible guy. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
John,
You've been keeping me on the cutting edge since I first met you in about 1990.
Yeah,
when you were doing Stormin's Classic
right.
at its peak.
Look at you now. So I was right.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. I don't know about your coaching skills, but
you were 0 in the season the first time out.
You're a better politician than coaching.
But I had fun though.
You had fun?
And I still see those kids actually.
You know, that's funny, right? I mean,
they're not kids anymore.
Let me ask you a question though. Okay, we look at you could say you were in the gym at Bancroft School,
right,
coaching kids. Now you in the White House playing pickup games with the president.
Right.
Did you ever dream of that?
I didn't, but I tell you what drew me to the Classic in the first instance is still something that keeps me up at night, which is how those kids going to be our future, how they're going to get the opportunities they need, both educationally in terms of jobs. You know, that issue of jobs is such a huge one for our state, obviously the city of Wilmington, our country. And I think of those kids, you know, and did they get the skills? Did they get the help they needed from us when we had them for, you know, a couple months during the summertime? And I worry about that. And I think it's probably the biggest issue that faces the country. I think about the president and all he's been through in the last 6 years and the continuing attacks that people have when his motivations, and yet, you know, he's got all the problems of the world.
But what's his basketball game like? Can he play?
He can play, yeah. He can play.
Can he for real?
Yeah.
Can you bust him down?
Well, he doesn't play much with junior members of Congress.
but you have played against him, right?
Have
you ever played in the White House?
No.
I heard you won like a foul shooting contest or something.
I did. Yeah. Well, that was...
So yeah, you shoot against Charlie Rango and those guys. Can you imagine Charlie Rango shooting a foul shot?
Hey, Charlie's great, and he just won his primary, which I think is fitting. He can go out on his own terms.
Let me ask you about this, because I find it fascinating, and folks who are watching will probably get a chance to talk to you this intimately. What intrigued you? If I could just stay in Congress for a second, like what intrigued you, or have anything awed you since you've been there?
I've been completely awed by a lot. By people like Charlie Rangel.
Okay.
People like John Lewis.
Right.
You know, this is
2014.
50 years ago.
Wow.
The Civil Rights Act was passed 50 years ago last year, the March on Washington. 50 years ago, 3 years ago in 2011.
Do you get a chance to talk to those guys?
I do.
Wow.
In fact, John and I have become pretty good friends. He calls me little brother. He says, "Don't worry about it, little brother."
You know, he came down here to the Classic with Tom Carper.
Oh, is that right?
I have that picture.
He is a saint. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. He tells a great story about how several years ago, some young white guy came up to him and said, "My father wants to meet with you." And John looked at him and he said, "Yeah." He said, "My father was part of a group that beat you up, Ku Klux Klan group, you know, at that time, a little less than 50 years before. And he wanted to apologize."
Wow.
And John Lewis, of course, embraced the guy. He just has a soul and a spirit that's kind of like no other. And what he's been through, beaten in the bus station in Montgomery, I guess it was, on the Freedom Rides, pummeled on Bloody Sunday at the base of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma in 1965, the beginning of the March for Voting Rights. And today, he's just, you know, as strong and as committed as he ever was. It's just incredible.
Well, what has
that kind of stuff?
I got you.
I mean, this guy is history.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I go to work with him every day.
Well, and these are guys you've seen when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On TV.
Wow. What has frustrated you so much?
Well, what's frustrating is, you know, some of these guys that come to Washington from various districts, and you know where the animosity is coming from, right? That motivates them, and you know, we're 50 years on from the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and in some ways, those resentments still are present, and we've got big challenges. Going back to my original point about wondering where those jobs are going to come from for the kids coming up today here in Southbridge and Wilmington, across the state of Delaware, across our country. You know, Wilmington is experiencing the same problems every urban area is in the country.
Wow.
There was a thing on the radio this morning about juvenile justice system in Memphis, Tennessee. You know, that's repeated.
Anyway,
You can name any major city. So it's a big, you know, it's something that we just haven't got our arms around, and it goes back to, you know, educational opportunities and family support.
Do you have an opinion? Like I was reading, and I'll give you my opinion. Well, we're housing like 120 immigrants here in the state of Delaware. What's your thought on that? Have you given that any thought?
I have given it a lot of thought, because we just had a piece of legislation that came before the House before we broke for the August recess that would appropriate special emergency funds to address the issue there at the border. I think we need to do a couple. What I hear from people is, how can we absorb those folks here in the U.S.? We're not even able to provide for our own children.
That's my point. And you know, if somebody said they sound conservative or insensitive, but you can walk around this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And see, I mean, you know what I mean? So
I don't think.
How do you balance that?
It's a hard balance. And here's where it gets particularly hard. Now, all the young people that are coming are not coming because they're fleeing, you know, violence worse than we see it in the streets here in Wilmington, or exploitation, you know, the sex trade for some of the young girls. But a lot of them are. How do you differentiate? My own view is you need a process where frankly, that Congress put in place after 2008, where there was some way of sorting out before kind of a judicial hearing through Health and Human Services. And some of those ones that are fleeing gangs, you know, they're risking their lives. They would have been killed if they were there. I mean, there's, you know, a concept of asylum.
But Congressman, if I cross the borders, they're going to shoot me. They're going to shoot me.
If you cross the border the other way.
Yeah. You understand my point? And and that's what people call. I mean, I had a debate, and I listened to the other side. I said, "Wow, you make sense." You know, so they come over and we house them. We go over there, they shoot us. And you don't want to sound insensitive, but that's what I'm saying. And then we already have an unemployment problem, especially in our freaking neighborhoods. In the black neighborhood, it's like fucking crazy. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, labor participation among black males is as low as it's ever been in I don't know, a half a century.
Why is that?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know it's a huge problem.
Didn't drop out rate?
It's jobs. It's the fact that we don't have those, you know, manufacturing jobs that we used to have. We don't have that kind of economy. So the economy of today, hey, high school graduation is the floor.
It sucks.
You need a couple years of Del Tech or higher ed, and yet in our city, the graduation rate's about 50%. 50%. That means half the kids aren't graduating.
And that depends on what neighborhood you're in.
Yeah, some of them 75%. There was a story about Southbridge. You know, they were celebrating 1 or 2 kids that had graduated in the last.
A celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be the minimum expectation for every kid.
Right.
And we should get them to move on. So they go out into a world that doesn't provide jobs for people with skills at that level.
What do you do? What do you do as a congressman?
And where there are skills there is a demand for skills, not you know, book skills or educational skills, mechanics, technicians. You know, we're not getting those young people into those programs so that they get out of a Del Tech or Del Castle High School or Glasgow with skills that they actually can go out there and get a job and make a living. Hell, James Clyburn likes to say that to me all the time. He's never met an unemployed plumber. Mm-hmm. I got a leak in my house today. I'm coming down here.
That makes sense, yeah.
Well, you know, but it's not that.
It's not that glamour.
Not that glamour. But hell, you know, we've got to make sure our young people have the wherewithal to.
And that's my beef. that's my beef. You don't have to say it. I say it. With some of the unions, you get these guys who become a plumber, but to get in their trade union, fuck, you gotta shoot somebody. You understand my point?
Yeah.
Electrical trade. Then to really get the prevailing wage job that we as Democrats holler about. You know I'm telling the truth.
No, sure.
So I'm preaching to the choir.
Well, I look at the apprentice graduation, and there's not many people of color up there.
Because, first of all, you gotta get recommendation from the cousin, the brother, and it's like a fucking family running.
But even at that, forget about that. You can go out there as an electrician, plumber, more so, hang up your own shingle and make a lot of money.
And I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
And you'll never be unemployed.
Never be. But my point is,
I have a friend.
The prevailing wage stuff, right?
I hear you.
So we want to go.
But I'm just saying, there's a whole bigger marketplace beyond that. I have a friend that I played football with in high school against at Delcastle, Herb Harvey. He's got his own, HVAC business.
Right.
He went to Delcastle for that, and he's out there, as a business. And he has his challenges. Don't get me wrong, we all do. But hell, there are opportunities out there, and I don't think we don't do as good enough job making sure, particularly the kids are struggling academically. Once they're struggling academically, we better find a different way for them to make a living, because otherwise, they're going to be out on the street.
Let me ask you about your future, right? I know you were frustrated with the whole government thing. I mean, 80% of people in our industry, in our world, that little world that we're in, thought that you were going to be governor. Do you see yourself going back there, or do you like Congress?
I enjoy what I'm doing now.
That's a political answer.
Yeah, that's the right answer. I mean, it's the way I
Is
feel
it true?
about it.
Okay.
I mean, do I have regrets sometimes? But you can't look back. And will the opportunity come for me to do it again? We'll see. I have no interest.
And by the way, I thought you handled that whole thing with class and dignity. I'm sure you heard that all the time. But you're like, hell with class and dignity, I want to win.
Well, you know me, right?
Because you're competitive
That's
like
right.
me. You know what I mean?
That's
You're like,
right.
okay.
But when you're feeling that way, and to handle it, straight up, is harder.
Who's been the biggest influence on your life?
Probably my dad, who I just left, just lost. He just passed away a couple weeks ago, and I don't think I realized it until he passed, which is a shame,
You guys come from a large family like me. It's 9 of us. It's 9
Nine of us, yeah.
We don't have families like that anymore.
No,
Big
you
pie.
can't afford it.
Yeah,
Although,
big pie.
we didn't have much, but hell, we didn't know anything different.
Yeah.
Felt,
We're a pretty close family.
very close. And, we've rallied around my mom now the last couple of weeks since, she was married to my dad 60 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How's she making out?
She's doing pretty good. Yeah, she's doing pretty
Having
good.
their challenges.
She will now, because they spent 60 years together.
I lost my mom. My mother was 54 years old. Picture right there. That's her.
Is that right?
That's my mother.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah, young age. You know what I mean? So I feel you, and that's why
Yeah.
I emailed you. And I guess you could never know how a person feels, but it's interesting to say that. And I know. How
And you never know how it's going to feel until it happens to you. I've gone to a lot of funerals over the years, and always, the back of my mind thought about what it would feel like when my own dad passed, and it's been hard, and particularly leading up to it. I think by the time I got to the day, I had strength provided by so many friends who reached out and really lifted me up. Otherwise,
it was like a blog to me, John, when my mother passed.
Yeah.
And 20 years later, I still go to graveside and cry.
Yeah.
I mean, because we were really
I
close.
cannot imagine with a mother.
We were really close like that.
Yeah.
So.
Was she an inspiration for you to do all this stuff that you've done?
Oh yeah.
Pushing and
because growing up in South Bridge Projects, you had to have someone say, "You're gonna be successful.
Right.
You're gonna make it."
But you've always been positive that way. You've always been a believer in yourself.
Yeah.
It had to come from somewhere, right?
Well, I'm going to ask you, can I borrow $10? Let's see how much you believe in me.
Yeah, right.
But you know what though, you've been a very. I think that you're one of the few, and I'm not stroking your ego because you're here, because maybe you have private conversations.
Right.
One of the few politicians that have played at this level, and this level.
Yeah.
So you can understand the whole dichotomy.
Right.
Even though, and so I imagine.
But one of the things that.
That's what I'm saying. I imagine that it could frustrate you because some of your friends say, John, man, I need this. Man,
Right.
come on, man, I voted for you.
Right.
And the expectations is like, I can't deliver that.
See, I think you're right, and I've always tried to. I mean, I think that's part of the reason that I was drawn to Stormin's Classic, you know, to get as close to the street as you possibly can get and understand what, you know, try to help kids at that level. And I've always tried to be that way, you know, in what I do. It's hard to do, though.
It is. The guy who coached with you, he passed away, right?
Yeah, he passed away. It's a sad thing because I didn't really know what was going on there. As it turned out, he had AIDS, and I wanted to go visit him, but I didn't know where he was, and he just passed away. And I found out from his mother, you know, or I read in the paper, or somebody called me. I forget which.
I tell you, I appreciate you coming on the show, and if you would, right? Because I'm going to be doing segments of this. I would like to have you on a couple more times.
Like I said, you've always kept me in the vanguard.
I got you covered, man. I got you covered, bro. Hey,
Great to see you. Yep. Good luck with your newest enterprise.
Thank you, man. Maybe
I'm sure you'll be a hit.
I hope so. Maybe to get me a job. So I couldn't get $10 from him. Shit, somebody give me $10.
There's $1 million industry because these two groups don't trust each other. So to be that connective tissue, right? That voice that can go in both worlds and talk, man, and plus to tell your own story. So the lady that's walking down on Governor Prince, she's just not walking down on Governor Prince because that's all she feel like doing that. This is a mother who's making the ultimate sacrifice. All she has is her body. She don't have money for Delmar and Power, but she's out there trying to make sure that her children have something to eat. The ultimate sacrifice. So when you're able to tell that story instead of the woman who just drug crave and don't want to do nothing with her life. See, so that's a different story.